Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Diana Salvemini. I'm a Global Technical Advisor on Local Action at UNDP, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Please note that we have English, Spanish, and French translation available. There is a green global icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and please feel free to use the Q&A function to submit your questions throughout today's discussion. Thank you for joining today's Eye-Level Political Forum side event entitled Societies in Harmony with Nature, Building Sustainable and Resilient Communities Throughout the Implementation of the Satoyama Initiative and COMDEKS. This side event is organized jointly by the Ministry of the Environment of Japan, the Keidanren Nature Conservation Council, the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, the United Nations University for the Advanced Study of Sustainability, and the Institute for the Global Environmental Strategies, the JUP Small Grants Program, and UNDP. Today's event will highlight the role of community development and knowledge management for the Satoyama Initiative Programme, COMDEKS, in achieving targets under the Sustainable Development Goals and the Global Biodiversity Framework. Today's events include high-level remarks from COMDEKS partners and donors, and will also feature an exciting panel discussion with community practitioners who will share their diverse knowledge and experience on the implementation of the Satoyama Initiative and COMDEKS. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Marcus Nader, UN Assistant Secretary General, UNDP Assistant Administrator, and Director of the Bureau for Policy and Program Support, to officially open the side event. Over to you, Marcus.
Thank you, Diana. Distinguished participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are. Allow me to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to the Ministry of Environment of Japan, Keidanren Nature Conservation Council, the Convention on Biological Diversity, and the United Nations University Institute for Advanced Study on Sustainability for partnering on this side event. The world faces a multidimensional planetary emergency of nature losses, degradation, and climate change, exacerbated by widening inequality, conflict, insecurity, and health crises. These are integrated crises that demanded integrated solution. Nature underpins our societies, our economies, provides solutions to these global crises. And we cannot achieve the Sustainable Development Goals without it. It is the source of hope for flourishing and thriving future. It is time we will restore our relationship with nature to one that is more balanced, less exploitative, and more harmonious. Indeed, the Satoyama Initiative is one such initiative that exemplifies societies living in harmony with nature, promoting resilience through nature-based solutions that are socially inclusive. Initiated in 2011, the Community Development Knowledge Management for the Satoyama Initiative Programme, COMDEKS, now has over a decade of experience in improving resilience across a range of global ecosystems. Over the past decade, UNDP has had the privilege of delivering the COMDEKS program through the Small Grants Program in close collaboration with the partners who have gathered here today. Currently, under COMDEKS Phase 4, 77 projects are under implementation in 15 diverse landscape seascapes. For example, in Peru's Agora landscape, 310 hectares of agricultural land have been brought under sustainable management. 53 native varieties of tubers and Andean grains have been reintroduced, and 467 farmers, of which 70% are women, have been trained in sustainable agricultural practice. UNDP sincerely appreciates the Ministry of Environment of Japan, Keidanren Nature Conservation Council, for their trust and commitment with the generous additional funding for COMDEKS Phase 4. With the Global Biodiversity Framework in place, Nature Pledge is UNDP's commitment to provide accelerated and upscale support to over 140 countries to reach their ambitious GBF targets. Through COMDEKS, we are strengthening biodiversity conservation, livelihood and improvement, and poverty reductions at the community level. UNDP, together with our partners, is committed to deepen our support to locally led conservation approaches to ensure the success of ecosystem restoration, poverty reduction, and achievements of the SDGs. The Global Biodiversity Framework includes an ambitious target to increase the global coverage of protected and conserved areas by 30% by the year 2030. This objective will surely not be met without reimagined conservation as equitable and fundamentally socially inclusive, as has been promoted through the Satoyama Initiative and COMDEKS. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a successful event. Sayonara.
Thank you, Marcus, for highlighting the important role of nature in addressing the triple planetary crisis and UNDP's commitment to inclusive and nature-positive solutions throughout the Nature Pledge. Now I would like to introduce Mr. Fumiaki Kobayashi, State Minister of the Environment of Japan, to bring his remarks.
本イベントにご参加の皆様、こんにちは。日本国環境副大臣の小林文明です。この重要なイベントにおいてご挨拶する機会をいただき嬉しく思います。はじめに、このイベントの準備を進められた国連開発計画、経団連自然保護協議会をはじめとする関係者の皆様に心より感謝を申し上げます。2022年末に合意された昆明モントリオール生物多様性枠組みでは、2030年までのミッションとして自然を回復軌道に乗せるため、生物多様性の損失を止め、反転させるための緊急の行動を取ることが掲げられています。また、ご存知の通り、2030年は SDGs の目標年でもあります。私たちに残された時間はわずかなので、ミッションの達成に向け、取り組みを加速していく必要があります。日本は、世界各地の生産ランドスケープ、シースケープにおける生物多様性の保全と持続可能な利用を進める里山イニシアチブを国連大学サステナビリティ高等研究所とともに提唱し、国連開発計画をはじめとする世界中の多くのパートナーとともに実践をしてきました。COMDEKS は国連開発計画により実施されているこの里山イニシアチブのフラッグシッププロジェクトです。これまでに世界27カ国で実施され、人々の活動と生物多様性の保全が両立した多くの有料事例が生み出されました。現在実施されている COMDEKS の第4フェーズにおいては、これまでの環境省の支援に加え、新たに経団連自然保護協議会の支援が加わりました。第4フェーズでは、多様なランドスケープ、シースケープを対象に、今まさに昆明モントリオール生物多様性枠組みの実施に向けた取り組みがそれぞれの現場で本格化しています。このイベントでは、COMDEKS の現場で活動されている方々にご登壇いただき、その経験を共有していただきます。また、昆明モントリオール生物多様性枠組みは、2050年のビジョンとして、自然と共生する社会も掲げています。このビジョンを達成する上で、私は COMDEKS のような、人の営みと調和する形で維持されてきた自然を保全していく取り組みが鍵になると考えています。このイベントが、皆様の昆明モントリオール生物多様性枠組みや、SDGs の達成のための取り組みをさらに発展させる一助となることを記念しまして、私からのご挨拶といたします。自然と共生する社会の実現に向けて、共に歩みを進めてまいりましょう。
Thank you so much, Minister, for your remarks and highlighting Japan's strong leadership on nature conservation through programs like Satoyama and COMDEKS. Thank you also for the government's generous support on COMDEKS Phase 4 and previous phases. Now I would like to introduce Mr. Keiji Nijisawa, President of the Keidanren Nature Conservation Council. The KNCF is another very important partner and key donor for COMDEKS Phase 4.
皆さんこんにちは。経団連自然保護協議会会長の西澤でございます。本日は世界各地から多くの皆様にご参加をいただきまして誠にありがとうございます。 まずは本イベントを共に開催いただきました UNDP 並びに環境省の皆様に心より感謝を申し上げます。また本日ご登壇いただく皆様をはじめ関係者の皆様にも厚く御礼を申し上げます。さて、昨年世界の平均気温は観測史上最高を記録し、ついにパリ協定の目標である 1.5 度を超えました。私たちは今まさに地球沸騰化という言葉が現実となる時代を迎えようとしています。また記録的な熱波の影響で森林火災が頻発し、熱帯原生林の消失規模は過去最大となりました。そして海の熱帯雨林とも呼ばれるサンゴ礁もその 84% が悪化するレベルの影響を受けていると言われております。このようにすでに地球の生態系は深刻な危機に瀕しています。私たちはこの危機的な状況を直視し、将来世代に先送りすることなく具体的な活動を加速していかなければなりません。私ども経団連自然保護協議会はこれまで30年以上にわたり国内外の自然保護活動を支援してまいりました。そして2022年に採択された GBF の達成に貢献するための具体的な行動の一つとしてCOMDEKS のフェーズ4に2023年からの5年間で3億円の資金拠出を行っております。COMDEKS は日本が古来より培ってきた里山里海の知見を生かし、人と自然が共生する持続可能な社会の実現を目指す活動です。現在フェーズ4では世界15カ国で50を超えるプロジェクトが行われており、自然共生社会に向けた取り組みは着実に進展しております。これからも我々は UNDP、環境省、そして地域で活動されている皆様と共にCOMDEKSを広く世界に普及させ、 GBF や SDGs の達成に貢献してまいりたいと考えております。最後になりますが、本日のイベントが地球の明るい未来を開くさらなる一歩となりますことを心より記念するとともに、今後ともCOMDEKSへの積極的なご参加とご支援をお願い申し上げ、私の挨拶とさせていただきます。ご清聴ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Mr. Nishizawa, for your commitment towards sustainable development through COMDEKS. Indeed, we cannot address the nature crisis without a strong partnership and commitment from the private sector. Now I would like to hand over to Professor Yamaguchi, Director of United Nations University, IAS. The UNU, IAS, and the IPSI have been a key COMDEKS partner and ally since Phase 1, and we're looking forward to working together on COMDEKS for Phase 4 implementation. Over to you, Professor Yamaguchi.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I am truly honored for this opportunity to talk about the International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiative and its value in implementing the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development and the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. The Satoyama Initiative was established to promote socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes known as SEPLS. It is a very important concept that the maintenance and development of socio-economic activities help to maintain the biodiversity and ecosystem services. At the same time, it supports the livelihoods, well-being, and culture of local communities in the sustainable way. This concept has been shaped by the interactions between people and nature over generations. To promote the concept of the Satoyama Initiative, International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiatives was launched in 2010 at the Biodiversity COP10 in Japan. The United Nations University Institute for the Advanced Study of Sustainability is proud to serve as its secretariat for over a decade. At our institute, we closely support this highly committed partnership consisting of more than 300 member organizations across the world. These members include national and subnational governments, academic institutions, NGOs, youth organizations, indigenous people, and local communities. Now, we are facing unprecedented and compounding the global crisis. Resilience has become a key priority across every policy agenda. We need to take concerted action with scientific knowledge and experiences. Socio-ecological processes contribute to resilience, 1, maintaining, 2, revitalizing, and 3, rebuilding the landscape and or the seascape. But at the same time, it is crucial for the communities to have the capacity to collectively apply an integrated approach. So practically, as a first step, communities need to understand the current status of their socio-ecological processes in order to understand and strengthen the strategies for the resilience. In this context, our institute created a practical tool, the indicators for resilience in socio-ecological production, landscapes, and seascapes. In short, SEPLS resilience indicators. These indicators can be used by the stakeholders to better understand their resilience to various socio-ecological shocks and disturbances. We are very happy that we are collaborating with the Global Environmental Facilities (GEF) small grant programs to help communities to adopt these indicators through COMDEKS. We do hope that the toolkit will enhance the resilience and help to further develop the COMDEKS initiatives by providing scientific and technical support. Ladies and gentlemen, this new phase of COMDEKS will significantly contribute to meeting the goals and targets of the CUMI Montreal, the Global Biodiversity Frameworks, along with other sustainability outcomes. By engaging a diverse range of stakeholders, this initiative will help to realizing the societies in harmony with nature worldwide and further to drive the progress on the sustainable development. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Yamaguchi, for the continuous partnership with UNU in the implementation of COMDEKS Phase 4. So now I would like to introduce Mrs. Risa Edo, COMDEKS Partnership Specialist, to give a brief overview on COMDEKS Phase 4 and then to lead us into the community panel discussion. Over to you, Risa.
Thank you so much, Diana, and good morning, good evening to all of our participants online. Thank you so much for joining us today. So at this point, I will just be providing a very brief overview of COMDEKS Phase 4. And as has been mentioned before, the Community Development and Knowledge Management for the Satoyama Initiative Programme aims to realize the long-term goal of the Satoyama Initiative, which promotes societies living in harmony with nature. And for over a decade, UNDP and our partners here today have been implementing this successful program. In the previous 3 phases, we have implemented over 400 projects in 20 countries. And in 2022, at the CBD COP15 in Montreal, we started the 4th phase of COMDEKS. And phase 4 is working on building resilience and promoting integrated local solutions and approaches at the landscape and seascape level. It's also aligned and it's contributing to the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework and the Sustainable Development Goals. In this 4th phase, we have our donors, which are the Ministry of the Environment Japan and Keidanren Nature Conservation Council, and they have contributed 1 billion Japanese yen to this initiative. This initiative is running from 2023 to 2027, and in addition to our key donors, we also have partners like the International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiative, UNU, and others who are working together to ensure that we are supporting biodiversity and conservation goals at the local community level. We have 15 countries in this new phase, and they are covering many countries across the globe, from Asia and the Pacific to Latin America and the Caribbean, including some small island developing states like Samoa and Jamaica. So as mentioned before, the COMDEKS Phase 4 is very much aligned and contributing to the Global Biodiversity Framework, but it's also aligned to national biodiversity and strategies and action plans. And COMDEKS Phase 4 is specifically working on spatial planning and restoration, protected area management, and other effective area-based conservation measures, which are key targets under the Global Biodiversity Framework. At the country level, we are working across 4 main thematic areas: landscape and seascape diversity, ecosystem integrity and resilience, livelihoods and well-being, biodiversity and sustainable management, which includes agriculture and fisheries, as well as governance and social equity. Now, as mentioned before by our speaker from UNU, we are using a specific tool during the COMDEKS Phase 4, and we have been using this tool in previous phases as well. It's called the Indicators of Resilience, and this is a participatory tool that communities are using, civil society are using to assess their landscape, plan, strategize, and monitor the various socio-ecological resilience components within their landscapes and seascapes. And the tool is very much aligned to the same thematic areas and outcomes that we have for the COMDEKS Phase 4. And it's really a process that's facilitated locally. It's a tool that's adaptive and flexible. And our countries have been using this tool over the last 1.5 years as they work to develop their COMDEKS strategies and as they work on assessing the biodiversity within the landscapes and seascapes that we're working in. So this slide is showing the COMDEKS process. There are different stages of the process, and over the last 1.5 years, we've been working at the country level on the first 3 phases, which involve identifying the landscape or seascape, doing resilience assessments using the resilient indicator tools, and doing participatory planning and designing, as well as capacity development. So in strengthening the capacity of communities and stakeholders in the landscape to actually develop strategies that are aligned with their priorities. So this has been the main work over the last 1.5 years, as I mentioned, and as we progress with COMDEKS, we are going to be collecting information, facilitating knowledge sharing and learning, and hopefully scaling up and replicating some of these successful initiatives that are being led and on the ground by local communities. So as mentioned before, we currently have 77 projects under implementation, and landscape and seascape strategies have been developed in almost all countries to date. If you're interested in learning more about COMDEKS, we have a short brochure that's available on the SGP website, and we'll put the link to this brochure in the chat box so you can access it further. But at this point, I would like to lead us into the panel discussion, which is actually going to feature community representatives and SGP grantees from Morocco, Bhutan, and Kyrgyzstan. So I'd like to invite Ms. Khadija Boras, who is the Executive Director from the Group for Bird Conservation in Morocco. Welcome, Khadija. I'd also like to welcome Ms. Altanay Achilova, who is our technical expert from the Rural Development Fund. So please join us and turn on your video. And of course, Dr. Sange Doji, our technical director from the Tarayana Foundation. So we are really pleased to have three of you on our panel with us today. You all have been doing excellent work on the ground with COMDEKS over the last year, and we're really proud of all the progress that you've made so far. And so this panel discussion is an opportunity for you to share some of that work and findings over the last year. And I'd like to just start the panel discussion with a question on the landscape and the seascape that you're working in. So can you tell us a little bit about the COMDEKS landscape where your project is being implemented, and a little bit about the process that has been used to develop the COMDEKS strategy? So maybe we can start with Khadija from Morocco, because your organization has a strategic grant under COMDEKS, and I know through this grant, you've really spent a lot of time developing the strategy, doing consultations, and we'd love to hear a little bit more from you on the landscape and the strategy. So over to you, Khadija.
Merci Rissa. Merci Rissa. Je tiens, avant de répondre à la question, de remercier tous les bailleurs de fonds, chacun avec son nom, pour leur support financier, et toute l'équipe PNUD qui était derrière l'implémentation de ce programme au Maroc. Revenons à votre question. Au Maroc, la stratégie COMDEKS a été construite à partir d'un processus participatif inclusif, impliquant à la fois le Comité national de pilotage, le gouvernement, les ONG, la communauté. Et ce processus s'est appuyé sur des réunions de focus group, des entretiens individuels avec des experts et une revue documentaire. L'objectif était de définir l'ensemble des critères de sélection des paysages et d'identifier les synergies avec les cadres nationaux comme le plan national de biodiversité et la nouvelle étude sur les aires protégées. À l'issue de ce processus, 3 paysages ont été retenus. Donc, il y a le Haut Atlas central, et plus précisément la zone qui est pour la biodiversité Ouad el-Khdar, Hansal. Donc, c'est un territoire riche en biodiversité et abrite des communautés ICCA actives qui perpétuent des pratiques de conservation traditionnelles. Et l'enjeu dans cette zone est vraiment de préserver et renforcer cette dynamique communautaire autour de la nature. Le deuxième paysage, celui du lac Aglmem Tifounassim, un site Ramsar qui accueille de nombreuses espèces d'oiseaux aquatiques, et il joue un rôle important dans la région dans la régulation des eaux, et possède une forte valeur culturelle en liaison avec le pastoralisme traditionnel encore pratiqué autour du lac. Le dernier, c'est le bassin versant de Ouadlaou, qui est reconnu par ses agrodiversités et ses forêts endémiques de sapins marocains, mais aussi fragilisé par l'exode rural, le changement climatique et la perte des savoirs locaux. Au niveau des paysages, nous avons appliqué l'outil des indicateurs de résilience pour établir un état des lieux communautaires des paysages. On s'est appuyé sur le guide méthodologique développé lors des phases précédentes, et bien sûr qui a été adapté dans une version simplifiée en français, en arabe, mais aussi en amazigh, qui est une langue locale, afin d'en faciliter la compréhension et l'appropriation par les acteurs locaux. Alors, cet outil a permis à la fois de renforcer les capacités des parties prenantes et d'accompagner les équipes de terrain dans l'animation des diagnostics participatifs. Nous avons mobilisé 3 groupes dans le premier exercice qu'on a effectué dernièrement, les femmes, les jeunes et les agriculteurs éleveurs. Et lors des discussions collectives, les participants ont évalué leur paysage à partir des indicateurs de résilience en attribuant des scores justifiés et en échangeant autour des critères clés. Alors, ces discussions ont permis aux participants de partager librement leurs perceptions et de mettre en lumière de manière implicite les forces et les faiblesses de leur territoire et d'aboutir à une compréhension partagée des enjeux locaux tout en renforçant la dynamique collective. En fait, cette questionnaire utilisé était un outil puissant d'autoréflexion. Il a poussé les participants à réfléchir en profondeur sur les pratiques traditionnelles malheureusement peu à peu perdues et à révaloriser les potentialités encore présentes dans leur paysage et surtout sur les actions prioritaires à entreprendre dans les brefs délais. Donc, certaines pistes d'action ont d'ailleurs émergé spontanément au fil des échanges, orientant même certaines associations locales vers de nouveaux projets répondant aux besoins de la communauté locale. Donc, c'était le premier exercice. Donc, ces informations, bien sûr, ils vont être recueillies, vont bien sûr être analysées et synthétisées, et puis utilisées comme une base pour l'organisation d'un second atelier qui permettra vraiment d'approfondir les échanges et d'identifier de manière concrète de manière concertée les actions concrètes à mettre en œuvre dans chaque village afin de renforcer la résilience du paysage dans une perspective du développement durable. J'ai quelques photos, je ne sais pas s'il y a encore du temps que j'ai oublié de les partager juste pour que vous mettez un peu dans...
No, it's okay. I think if we have time, we can show them at the end. But thank you so much, Khadija, for explaining the process that was used to develop the strategy in Morocco and telling us a little bit about the High Atlas mountain landscape, which is a very unique and diverse landscape in Morocco. So I'd like to pass on now to Atulnay from Kyrgyzstan. I know that in Kyrgyzstan, we're working in the Lake Izikul region, which is both a landscape and a seascape. So can you tell us similarly about the process used to develop the strategy and a bit about the landscape and seascape? You have to unmute yourself. Oh, you're still muted, Altanay. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Lisa. In Kyrgyzstan, the selected pilot area is the Izikul Basin. It is actually the Izikul Lake and all coastal zone and all surrounding landscapes and ecosystems. And in general, approximately it constitutes around 22% of the country territory. So it's very important area for biodiversity and protection of endemic plants and rare animals. In terms of the local communities, and it's very important area for local communities as custodians and practitioners of traditional lifestyle, applying Kyrgyz customary practices in agriculture and natural resource management. The country strategy, which was mainly based on use of the indicators of the resilience in socio-ecological production landscape and seascapes, updated in 2024. And the assessment of the landscape resilience included as many natural resource users as possible from different parts of the landscape. It consisted mainly of preliminary consultations, mapping, scoring, discussions with local communities, local users, and we also tried to involve scientific community and experts in order to discuss the issues related to monitoring of the state of natural resources and biodiversity. And at the end of the assessment, the final workshop also was held to conduct a comprehensive assessment of the resilience of the entire pilot area and to discuss the results of the preliminary consultations and mappings, which were conducted previously during the previous meetings with local communities. For us, it was very important to involve different categories of users, aiming to include as many groups of natural resource users from different geographic zones as possible. And it gave us the possibility to make like the whole assessment of the whole landscape and the ecosystems. Also, the methodology included some additional questions which we used in order to understand the issues of governance, the issues of involvement of vulnerable groups and women in management of natural resources, by protection of the biodiversity, and the conservation issues which are held on the landscape by different groups, including local communities. It was very important for us to reflect the current state of the landscape from the point of view of local communities. We gave them an opportunity to reflect their vision of what is happening on the landscape and what are possible solutions and initiatives in order to protect the biodiversity, to protect endemic plants and rare animals, and in order to support local communities to maintain their livelihood based on rational use of natural resources.
Thank you so much, Altanay. And I think both you and Khadija spoke a lot about the actual process, and it's the level of detail that went into planning all of these consultations and these workshops, ensuring that it's participatory and ensuring that using the resilience indicators as a tool to facilitate discussion and dialogue, because this is exactly what COMDEKS is promoting, a bottom-up approach, an inclusive approach. So ensuring that we also have technical experts and biodiversity focal points involved in this strategy and planning process is crucial. And so now I'd like to invite Dr. Sangay to share your experience from Bhutan. And I know your organization, the Tarayana Foundation, is a recipient of one of the COMDEKS grants. And this grant that you're working on is as a result of the strategy that was developed in the highland landscape. So tell us a little bit about the process used to develop your project and the highland landscape. Thank you, Dr. Sangay.
Hi to everyone from Himalayas. So our project area lies in one of the national parks in Bhutan, and it's one of the most Bhutan's largest and most ecologically significant project areas in Bhutan, and it has a very exceptionally unique habitat for where the tigers, snow leopards, is the only place where the tigers and snow leopards overlap, habitat or coexist symmetrically and overlap, and also have many other species like red pandas living there in that project area, and also have rich high altitude medicinal plants, diverse flora and fauna, and also it's a very important area for the water catchment area. And then the elevation of the area mainly varies from 3,800 to 5,500 meters above sea level, and most of the residents living in the area are nomadic yak herders. And Bhutan have a very unique conservation model where the people and the yaks or the grazing as considered as an integral part of the protected area system, unlike the other countries where people chase out from the protected areas, but we maintain the protected the residents in the protected areas, and most of the people practices semi-nomadic lifestyles and have a deep knowledge of local ecosystem, which plays a critical role in maintaining the ecological balance and sustaining the pasture land health, rangeland health, and supporting the biodiversity. And further, it is also very important culturally and spiritual. There are a lot of spiritual values associated with the landscape, such as secret mountains, local deities, religious sites, and also which reinforce the conservation ethics and community stewardship. However, although Bhutan contributes is a negative carbon negative, but then we are most impacted, one of the most impacted countries due to the climate change. And our fragile mountain ecosystems are becoming increasingly vulnerable due to changing land use practices and restrictive policies like banning of forest fire, banning of burning slash and burns and partial land since 1969. And because of that, they are also facing the change of landscape, especially the shrinking of grazing lands and yak populations because of that, and also because of the climate change and all those land change in land use practices. So it's accelerating the biodiversity loss and also a lot of invasive species overtaking the pasture or rangeland. And then also in the project era, we faces unsustainable resource collections like increasing collection of medicinal plants and insects. And then also you have issues with the rural-urban migration and degeneration of the traditional land use management knowledge and practice. Especially the youth are not interested to take up the livestock or yak herding activities in the area. And then also people have a limited access to the market and also value addition for the livestock and rural non-wood forest products. And then, as I was saying, like the climate change is one of the most impacting on the landscape. So like the people are experiencing the melting of snows on the mountains, and erratic weather conditions, pests and diseases, and landslides of falling. So based on those challenges, we actually did the planning of the projects in the project. So we did the consultations at the grassroots level, following our royal government of Bhutan's policy of decentralized policy. So and we developed the proposal in consultation with the rural communities, and we also involved multi-stakeholders like the government officials, the national park representatives, and other stakeholders like monks, teachers, health workers, who are actually who works in the project area. So, and then based on those these consultations, the people identify the current issues and challenges pertaining to their livelihood and biodiversity conservation in and around their villages, and they also propose some suggestions and solutions to mitigate those issues. And then also we explored discuss about the opportunities for sustainable management of natural resources and livelihood development opportunities in their villages. So in general, the project actually aims to leverage the social strength of these communities to promote environmental conservation and improve livelihood while considering the sustainable use of natural resources such as water, land, and biodiversity, and also the livelihood, promotion of livelihood in the area. So as such, Tariana Foundation, we always engage with the vulnerable rural communities across the countries and work with the current issues that actually affecting the rural communities all over the countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sangi, for explaining the process and the challenges in the landscape. And I'm sure that while each landscape and seascape that we're working in is unique, the challenges are quite similar across many of them, including climate change and biodiversity loss. And I think, working together with the community to identify the solutions that they would like to work on that aligns with their traditional and cultural practices and values is really critical. And it's a critical point that we're working on in COMDEKS. So I'd like to go back to Khadija from Morocco. If you can tell us about some of the initiatives that are planned or ongoing in the High Atlas Mountain landscape aligned to the COMDEKS strategy. Over to you, Khadija. Khadija, are you able to speak? Oh, maybe she's having some technical issues. Maybe we can, oh, Khadija, are you able to speak? Okay, I think maybe she's having a little bit of a challenge. So maybe we can go to Altanai. Khadija, can you hear us? Okay, I think let's go to Altanai. Same question, Altanai, in terms of some of the possible projects that you'll be working on.
Yeah, thank you. The assessment identified a number of problems and challenges. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Altanai.
Okay.
Khadija, we'll come back to you.
Okay. Identified a number of threats and challenges, which are mainly related to non-sustainable land use practices. I haven't mentioned that the pilot area, the Lake Isikul, it's a very important zone for biodiversity, for wintering and nesting, for migratory birds. Also, the region's wetlands are listed under the Ramsar Convention, and wild sea buckthorn and wetlands are main conservation zones in order to filter the water and to keep the water of the lake clean. That is why non-sustainable land use practices are causing threats to the shrinking of wetland areas. It also causes the pollution of water, not only of the lake, but also surrounding rivers and wetlands in general. Another problems and challenges include the decline of some plants, wild sea buckthorn area, and deforestation, and it all very closely connected to the loss of traditional knowledge and loss of traditional practices which were used previously as like more rational, more sustainable land use practices, sustainable use of pastures, forests, and of water. As a possible or proposed interventions, as a strategy and the assessment in general identified such directions as the strengthening of well-being of local communities through the enhanced landscape, strengthening the community engagement in ecosystems, and biodiversity governance and involvement of local communities in the conservation of natural resources. The assessment has shown that the local communities and the user groups, they clearly understand the strong linkage between their livelihoods and the protection of biodiversity and natural resources. That is why most of the initiatives are focused on the mix of introduction of innovative approach and traditional practices in order to maintain more sustainable land use and water use practices. Another direction of work which was proposed is related to introduction of the knowledge component, which includes the use of sustainable practices, including traditional knowledge, innovative approach, green technologies, introduction of ecotourism and ethnotourism, awareness raising, public outreach, as education of not only young generation, but also adult and communities in general. It was also very important to hear from the local communities that it is essential to involve scientific community and experts in order to conduct work related to monitoring of the state of natural resources and to participation of the experts in development of the solution, how to protect the landscape, ecosystem, biodiversity, and how to support local communities in kind of implementation of such kind of activities.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alsina. I think the point you raised about combining local knowledge and traditions and culture with scientific knowledge and research is really important, and it's something that we're trying to also promote in other countries where we're implementing COMDEKS. And I'm sure in Morocco we're using similar approaches in terms of trying to revitalize traditional practices. I don't know if Khadija, if you're able to unmute and tell us a little bit about the initiatives in Morocco now.
Oui, c'est bon, vous m'entendez?
Yes, we can hear you.
Ok, donc le programme au Maroc, donc il intervient dans des paysages socio-économiques confrontés à de nombreux défis comme la dégradation des sols, l'érosion de la biodiversité, la raréfaction des terres fertiles, mais surtout l'affaiblissement des institutions communautaires de gestion et la perte progressive des savoirs culturels de la conservation. Donc, pour faire face à ces défis, le programme soutient une série d'initiatives communautaires, parmi lesquelles il y a le projet porté par l'association ASCA, qui vise à renforcer la résilience des agro-écosystèmes de la gestion à travers la création des observatoires communautaires sur les semences locales climato-résilientes, et cela à travers principalement deux activités, la collecte, la conservation et la valorisation des semences, et l'organisation des formations pratiques en agroécologie destinées aux agriculteurs locaux. Alors, je vous invite à poursuivre un petit témoignage de la présidente de l'association qui est porteuse de ce projet. Elissa?
Thank you so much, Khadija. Yes, we will have the video from Morocco now. It's coming up soon.
حيث تمكنت من خلال هذا البرنامج على إطلاق مشروعا مبتكرا بهدف إلى تعزيز صمود النظم الإيكولوجية الزراعية من خلال إحداث مرصد مجتمعي للبذور المحلية المقاومة للتغيرات المناخية بأيت محمد. هذا المرصد يشكل أداة عملية لتعزيز صمود النظم الإيكولوجية الزراعية من خلال تثمين المعارف التقليدية وتحسين إدارة الموارد الطبيعية بشكل تشاركي. من مميزات هذا المشروع أنه يستهدف جميع الفئات وخاصة الشباب والنساء، مما يضمن بناء جسر بين الأجيال لنقل الممارسات الجيدة في حفظ البذور وتدبير الأراضي الزراعية. بفضل برنامج كومدكس استطاعت الجمعية تطوير قدراتها التقنية والتنظيمية لكونه يتضمن أنشطة تطبيقية ومواكبة ميدانية مباشرة للفلاحين والفلاحات في مجال اختيار إنتاج وتخزين البذور المحلية المقاومة للتغيرات المناخية، وكذا تشجيع الزراعة الإيكولوجية من أجل حماية التنوع البيولوجي والزراعي وتمكين المجتمعات من أدوات التكيف مع التغيرات المناخية.
Merci Rissa. Alors un autre exemple de projet, celui mené par l'association FMI, donc qui se focalise sur la restauration des parcours dégradés en s'appuyant sur les pratiques agricoles ancestrales. Donc c'est la ZAGDEL, donc c'est une pratique très ancienne au Maroc. Et l'ensemencement tout en préservant la zone humide à travers des aménagements favorables à la nidification des oiseaux. Et donc, bien sûr, le projet s'aligne sur les priorités du plan d'action national pour la biodiversité 2020-2030. Alors ça, c'était deux exemples de projets. Au total, nous avons 7 projets et tous les projets soutenus par le programme et illustrent parfaitement l'approche du COMDEKS qui est vraiment ancrée dans le renforcement du savoir des locaux et des pratiques traditionnelles. Et il vise à créer un modèle de gestion où les communautés locales peuvent vivre en harmonie avec la nature. Voilà, merci.
Thank you so much, Khadija, for that and for that great video, which showed where we got to see a little bit of the High Atlas mountain landscape. So thank you. So over to Sange to tell us a little bit more about some of the specific activities of your project and how it's addressing the challenges you identified earlier.
So, as I was saying, like through the participatory assessment, so in collaboration with the stakeholders, we collaboratively designed targeted interventions to strengthen the community's resilience and also restore biodiversity and enhance human-wildlife coexistence, promote sustainable use of natural resources, and explore ecotourism opportunities for the rural communities in the area. In addition, we have actually gave a special emphasis on placing on integrating the local and traditional knowledge system, fostering community stewardship, and creating alternative livelihood opportunities to reduce dependency on this fragile mountain ecosystem. Through these interventions, the project not only addresses the urgent environmental and socioeconomic challenges, but also we hope to empower highland communities to become proactive custodians of their landscape and also the cultural heritage. So some of the interventions that we identified based on the issues that I identified were the water resource management. So the availability of the safe and sustainable water resources was a major concern for the Yakarta communities, and the degradation of water resources due to climate change and human activities was also said to threaten water security in the area. So for that, we proposed the interventions to improve water access through resource mapping, water source mapping, the co-creations of water harvesting and storage system using the nature-based solutions, and also training the local communities on the infrastructure maintenance to maintain the existing infrastructures in the area. And another intervention that we are trying to implement is the strengthening the local livelihood through the support of machineries for the non-wood forest products, and also the capacity development through skill development, developing the market linkage, and also promote brand Naro. Naro is the place where our project is taking place to market the yak and non-wood forest products. So this is basically because there's a limited marketing and value additions for livestock and non-wood forest products in the area, and also limited processing and packaging equipments for livestock and non-wood products, and also lack of suitable storage and transportation for livestock products from the mountains. So for that, the interventions we are trying to propose is the capacity developments for the women weavers group, so to diversify the yak hair into marketable products that we can make the women's group to earn some income from that, and also promoting the brand Naro to facilitate and marketing of the yak products and non-wood products in the tourists and also for the local market. The other intervention is also to promote ecotourism or nature-based tourism as a conservation tool. So there are a lot of opportunities for the nature-based tourism, and also the very rich cultural heritage. The places have a very rich culture, and there are a lot of alpine lakes and unique biodiversity. However, there is lack of infrastructures and proper tourism packages. So as such, for the interventions, we are trying to map the hiking routes and develop a community-based ecotourism management plan featuring the biodiversity culture, livestock practices, and also the non-wood forest products or agriculture products, and also showcase to the youths how the impact of climate change is affecting the mountain ecosystems. That can be also one of the packages that we can. And the other one is also, as I was saying, the area is rich for biodiversity from a wildlife point of view. So we have tigers and snow leopards in the area, but also the human-wildlife conflicts where there was a reported that at least 7.3% of loss of domestic animals to this to the wild predators in the last 3 years, which actually is a big loss to the rural communities or the yak holders. So to reduce that, so especially the yak, the predators attack the yak calves, the weaker ones and the young ones. So we actually, as interventions, we're trying to provide the coral fencing to protect the yak calves and reduce the predation rates. And then also other interventions, there's a lack of technical knowledge and skills among the rural communities to maintain the ecotourism or the socio-economic activities. And so to that, we're organizing the capacity building workshops using Tariana's model for personal advancement and career and enhancement, especially to empower the rural women and youth for in the final, and also the financial inclusions, and then and also train the women group in the making the yak hair savannah, and also train the communities on accounting, bookkeeping, basic maintenance, and troubleshooting of the solar equipments and water infrastructures, and also training on the nature-based solutions. Other interventions are also on the policy and governance challenges they face. So there are some delays in the policy integration or lack of government support which are hindering the scaling up of and sustainability of the project. So as an intervention, so we're trying to engage the policymaker. So we have to actually engage the policymakers and the important stakeholders from the consultation to the implementations of the project through engaging them. So, and also advocating on the policy inclusions and establishment of partnership with the government agency, like especially the National Park, Jimmy Dodge National Park, for long-term institutional support.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sanjay. And I know there was a question in the chat box about how do we ensure the sustainability of these local initiatives. And I think you touched on that in your response in terms of ensuring that it's aligned with national policy, especially biodiversity policies or even local policies and plans, and ensuring that there is a livelihood component to the projects that we are doing to ensure that even after the funding ends, we have a sustainable livelihood component that ensures that the communities still continue to secure their income and their livelihoods after the project funding ends. So these are two strategies that we're using in COMDEKS and in the Small Grants Program to ensure sustainability of the initiatives. And I'd like to now pass back to Altanai. If you can just tell us a little bit more about how COMDEKS at the local level is supporting national biodiversity priorities through your national biodiversity plans in terms of policy integration.
Yeah, thank you. As I told earlier, the Isikul Basin is a very important geographical, natural, and cultural landscape, and not only at the national or local level, but also regionally and internationally. That is why we believe and we think that the work under COMDEKS program will contribute to the implementation not only of the key national programs and strategies, including the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, but also we believe that the project activities will contribute or support the implementation of a number of international conventions, such as Convention of Biological Diversity, Ramsar Convention, as I told earlier, which is related to conservation of wetland zones, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Currently, the number of programs and projects are being implemented in Kyrgyzstan, including the pilot area, which are focused on conservation of biodiversity, endemic plants and rare animals, and support of local communities in or active involvement of local communities in those conservation activities. And we believe that the implementation of the strategy and the small grant programs under COMDEKS will support local initiatives for climate change adaptation, first of all, biodiversity restoration and conservation, sustainable water and land resource management, and will ensure community participation, including women and vulnerable groups, which is very important to involve them as more as possible in decision-making, governance, and conservation projects, because those groups of users are mainly dependent on the use of natural resources.
Thank you so much, Altanai. And I think the point you raised on engaging the actual users of biodiversity, those who actually depend on nature and biodiversity for their livelihoods, is critical in the COMDEKS approach. And this is how we have been able to secure the participation of local communities, rural communities, for example, up in the highland regions in Bhutan, to actually get involved in this COMDEKS initiative, because it aligns with their livelihood and their way of life. So I think there was a question in the chat box in terms of how are we engaging or ensuring participation of local communities, and it's because we are directly linking the activities of the project or the initiative to their livelihoods and their way of living. So over to you, Khadija, on a similar question, how are the initiatives that you're working on in the High Atlas region aligned to or complementing biodiversity in Morocco?
Alors, comme je l'ai dit dans la première question, les paysages qui ont été choisis sont d'une grande diversité biologique, mais aussi ils ont une forte valeur culturelle en lien avec plusieurs pratiques ancestrales. Donc, le programme COMDEKS, il vient de soutenir la mise en œuvre des grandes orientations nationales en matière de biodiversité, notamment le plan d'action national pour la biodiversité et la stratégie nationale sur les aires protégées, principalement à travers une intervention ciblée dans les zones clés pour la biodiversité, telles que le Haut Atlas central et la réserve de biosphère de la Cédrée, ainsi que le bassin versant de Ouedla, avec pour objectif de revitaliser les pratiques culturelles de conservation. Et aussi, d'un autre côté, elle soutient les ICCA qui ont démontré leur efficacité en matière de préservation de la biodiversité grâce à l'engagement des communautés locales, la gouvernance coutumière et la transmission des savoirs traditionnels. Alors, toujours dans le cadre de ce deuxième volet, le COMDEKS, il renforce également les actions qui sont déjà engagées dans le cadre de l'initiative stratégique de soutien ICCA au Maroc, en soutenant directement les organisations communautaires actives dans la conservation traditionnelle et communautaire, en renforçant la résilience écologique et sociale des territoires de vie déjà identifiés et soutenus dans cette initiative, et bien sûr en encourageant la mise en réseau de ces structures à l'échelle des paysages, notamment dans le Haut Atlas central, pour favoriser vraiment l'émergence d'aires communautaires de conservation à grande échelle. Il y a aussi le COMDEKS qui contribue concrètement à l'atteinte de l'objectif 30-30 de la conservation sur la biodiversité biologique, en appuyant la reconnaissance officielle des aires de conservation communautaire en tant que mesure de conservation efficace, et en étendant la superficie effectivement conservée au Maroc au-delà des aires protégées classiques, en valorisant les initiatives locales et la conservation fondée sur les communautés.
Thank you so much, Khadija, and thank you also for mentioning the ICCA, which is the Indigenous and Community Conserved Areas framework, and it's something that's also aligned to what we're doing in COMDEKS, ensuring that Local communities, indigenous peoples are involved in the actual governance and management of protected areas, OECMs, and landscapes and seascapes. So similar question to Sange in terms of how is the project aligned to your Bhutan's protected area management system and policies, as well as the NBSAPs in your country?
So as I was saying, like the project actually, the planning phase involves the decentralized process where we actually consulted with the rural communities, and then based on the government's policy of decentralized policy. So the project actually fits into the local government's 5-year plans, and the project supports the Bhutan's NBSAP objectives, particularly on the conservation of biodiversity in the protected areas through community managed landscapes. And also it contributes to the sustainable development goals and gross national happiness pillars by promoting the environmental conservation alongside the socio-economic well-being of the people. And it is also one of the priority area for including the Yakarta communities. They are recognized as the priority intervention area in Bhutan's current 13th 5-year plan, where the governments have a Highland flagship development programs, which focuses on the sustaining the traditional livelihood while also enhancing the climate resilience and market access. So the planned activities and the results of the COMDEK approach or the project. So basically, we are expecting to contribute towards the ecological sustainability and habitat restorations in the area, and also strengthening the community's resilience to climate change and enhancing the livelihood, and empowering the local governance and stewardship of taking care of the natural resources through participatory planning and implementation, and strengthening the communities, institutions, and collective decision making, and building capacity for natural resource governance, which is actually in line with the Bhutan's decentralization, community-based management principles. Also enhancing the partnership and synergize the partnership among the stakeholders, especially the national parks, local government, and CSOs and other donors. So it also brings a synergy and partnership and synergize the collaborations, and also support towards the national and global conservation, like safeguarding the critical highland ecosystems, and contribute towards the Bhutan's national conservation target under the Convention on Biodiversity, Biological Diversity, CBD, and commitment to the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People by 2030 target. And finally, as we know, the United Nations has declared 2026 as the International Year of Rangeland and Pastoralists. So this presents an incredible opportunity for us to capture and showcase the incredible biodiversity, beauty, and challenges of the life and livelihood in the highlands of Bhutan or Himalayas.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sange. I think what you mentioned in terms of the capacity building as well as the multi-stakeholder platforms are critical in terms of ensuring inclusive governance in the landscapes and seascapes that we're working in during COMDEKS Phase 4. And I know similar initiatives are taking place in Morocco, Kyrgyzstan, and other countries where COMDEKS is being implemented to ensure that we facilitate networking and partnership amongst key stakeholders in the landscape to ensure sustainability as well as policy coherence. So I'd just like to, we'll be wrapping up the panel discussion soon, but I would just like to ask a final question to Altanai in terms of lessons learned and best practices. I know the Rural Development Fund has been working in this particular landscape for quite some time. So how do you see some of the learnings that you've gained over the years being applied to the new Phase 4?
the previous activities, including activities under the COMDEKS Phase 1 to 3, and other projects as grassroots projects from the coming from the local level, contributed to supporting local groups of users and communities in establishment of micro-reserves. There are few micro-reserves are working currently in the pilot area, which are focused on conservation of rare species and unique natural areas. And under the following phase of the COMDEKS, Phase 4, some other activities and initiatives are also proposed in order to launch new areas for establishment of micro-reserves. And this is very important point because such kind of initiatives were actually launched by and proposed by local communities because their approach is mainly based on limiting the anthropogenic factors or impacts in order to give an opportunity for ecosystem and landscape to restore naturally. Such kind of activities are very local groups of natural resource users are very interested in improving the conservation activities using micro-reserves. Another best practice is, I would like also to answer one of the questions which was giving is like the mix of traditional knowledge and scientific knowledge. And here we can see the use of different indicators, scientific indicators and traditional knowledge or traditional indicators in order to conserve the biodiversity and natural sites, and in order to assess the impacts of climate change. For example, some of the traditional indicators are very similar to those which are given to us by scientific experts and scientific groups. And it was very, very important for us to hear from local communities that they fully agree and those indicators fully aligned one to another. Such indicators are also important for us to see, like the gender differences. For example, the disappearance of swallows and frogs, reduction of certain pasture plants, absence of poppies on mountain slopes, disappearance of wild bees. And such kind of indicators can be confirmed also by scientists. Mm-hmm. And it was really important for us during the assessment to hear that local communities and local users are prone or ready to work with scientific groups in order to mix such kind of knowledge, traditional practices, innovative approach and scientific knowledge. I think that another lesson learned or best practice is that it was demonstrated by the representatives of local government that they are ready or prone to work with local communities in order to continue their active work or conservation works in order to protect and restore ecosystem, landscape, and biodiversity. And it was also very essential to see such groups of users as beekeepers, eco-activists, biologists, and custodians of traditional knowledge to come up with their initiatives and ideas, and that they are ready to continue their ongoing work on conservation in the pilot area. So one of the best practices is to see that the all group of users, all group of actors are ready to conduct collaborative work together.
Yeah, thank you so much, Altina. And that's really encouraging to hear that, you know, there is such strong collaboration taking place in the landscape. And I think that's critical to the COMDEKS approach going forward. And thank you also for addressing the question on traditional knowledge and integrating it with scientific indicators. So last question, Khadija, if you can also address or talk about some of the learnings that you are applying to the new phase or the new projects that are ongoing.
Parmi les meilleures pratiques qui sont impliquées, les leçons tirées d'autres initiatives de SGP et ICCA, c'est la mise en place de comités de paysage. Ces comités agiront comme de véritables plateformes de dialogue et de planification multi-acteurs et qui vont garantir et assurer une gouvernance inclusive et participative à l'échelle du paysage. En fait, il s'agit de mettre en place un système de gouvernance inclusive à l'échelle du paysage impliquant les institutions coutumières, les femmes, les jeunes, les administrations locales, les OCB et toutes les parties prenantes concernées par le paysage. Et l'objectif derrière est vraiment d'accompagner les communautés dans la réflexion et la mise en œuvre de mesures concrètes en faveur de la durabilité institutionnelle et financière des SEPLS. Alors, ces plateformes aideront également la communauté à préparer et à mener des actions de plaidoyer, de dialogue politique pour le soutien approprié des SEPLS dans les politiques territoriales et nationales.
Thank you so much, Khadija, for that. And again, highlighting the importance of engaging continuously and building relationships with various stakeholders, including policymakers within the landscapes and seascapes that we're working at. So I would like to thank all of our panelists for this really fruitful dialogue and for providing us with such clear ideas of what's taking place on the ground in your countries. And to conclude the panel discussion, I'd just like to feature a short video from Kyrgyzstan, which kind of wraps up what we've been discussing throughout the panel. So let's have the video from Kyrgyzstan.
Иссык-Куль – уникальное высокогорное озеро, которое не замерзает даже зимой благодаря минерализации воды. Оно регулирует климат, сохраняет водный баланс и служит домом для редких животных и растений. Баланс этой экосистемы веками сохранялся, но сегодня под угрозой. Вырубка облепихи, перегрузка пастбищ, загрязнение воды и изменение климата ведут к утрате природы. Чтобы сохранить экосистему Иссык-Куля, разработана стратегия COMDEKS. Она помогает местным жителям устойчиво использовать ресурсы, сохранять традиции и природу.
Сегодня мы всех собрали, хотим сделать такой общий мозговой штурм и вывести на единые приоритетные направления.
В Чубском районе эколог Александр Садыков с командой построил домик для наблюдения за птицами. Их становится все меньше. Облепиху, которая служит птицам укрытием и кормом, массово вырубают на дрова. Решение, по его словам, выращивать культурные сорта облепихи.
Человек, если будет культивировать и выращивать культурный сорт облепихи, он получит намного больше, выиграет даже. Ему не надо будет ходить вырубать дрова.
Власти поддержали идею. Саженцы уже высажены в одной из местных школ. Долина священных родников Манджылы-Ата. Местность известна множеством лечебных источников. Чтобы защитить родники и полупустынную природу от массового туризма, активисты хотят создать здесь заповедник.
Экология коркылбасак, бу жерде тебелеп тепсеп, иши көп басып, бадалдар кыйлат, деградация болот, өзү эле жарым чөл болгон жерде.
При потребности в 120 тысяч гектаров пастбищ в Чубском районе имеется лишь 58 тысяч. Выпас скота превращает эти земли в пустыню. Для решения проблемы с поливом в горах создают искусственные ледники. Один такой ледник может обеспечить орошение от 300 до 500 гектаров земли.
Биз кармап келген суу буяка кетип, буяктагы жашоочуларга дагы суу менен камсыз болуп атат да, а жашоочулардан ашкан суу сугатка кетип атат.
В мастерской Джаныл Баишевой шерсть не выбрасывают, а превращают в шердаки, сувениры и национальные изделия. Это снижает нагрузку на пастбища и развивает этнотуризм.
Мен тайнем менен көп иштер жасадык. Ал киши деген өзү шырдактарды жасап, өзү боечу да. Ошол кезде эле жүндүн, бир да тал жүндү таштачу эмес да.
Иссык-куль можно сохранить, если действовать вместе. Программа малых грантов ПРООН и ГЭФ, инициатива Сатояма и активные сообщества уже показывают путь.
Great. So thank you so much again, panelists, for your amazing presentations and contributions. I'd really like to thank you and congratulate you on your work. And I think over the discussions, over the last 40 minutes, 45 minutes, we've actually answered several of the questions in the chat box already. So at this point in time, I'd like to pass over back to Diana to help us wrap up today's event.
Thank you very much, Risa, and a huge thank you to you and to all our amazing community speakers from Morocco, Bhutan, and Kyrgyzstan. It's been great also to see these amazing videos as well. This has been a very insightful discussion on a wide range of different landscapes. So it's really great to see the progress that has been made so far and to hear about the resilience indicators, how they've been updated in this new phase and also used to help develop COMDEKS landscape strategies for continuous learning. So through COMDEKS 4, we will continue to learn and share experience across the globe to facilitate local action for global impact. And before closing this side event, I would like to welcome Mrs. Astrid Schomacher, the Executive Secretary for the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, to wrap today's event and deliver some closing remarks.
Good morning. On behalf of the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, I would like to extend our sincere thanks to the Ministry of Environment of Japan, the Keidanren Nature Conservation Council, UNDP, and the United Nations University for co-organizing this event and for their continued commitment to advancing community-led conservation and sustainable development. We at the Secretariat are proud of our long-standing collaboration with you in advancing COMDEKS. This initiative has empowered communities, bolstered resilience, and enhanced the sustainable use of biodiversity through locally sourced solutions. We are especially grateful to the Ministry of the Environment of Japan and the Keidanren Nature Conservation Council for lending their generous support to Phase 4 of COMDEKS, which builds on the strong foundation laid by the first 3 phases of COMDEKS from 2011 to 2022, supported by the Japan Biodiversity Fund. In more than a decade of implementation, COMDEKS has built a robust knowledge base and networks that can now be leveraged to the required amplification of impact at scale. This side event will highlight eloquent examples of what COMDEKS has achieved over the years. Allow me to single out 2. First, the strong ownership by local actors who are taking the lead in conserving and restoring ecosystems while enhancing their own well-being and livelihoods. And second, the many ways in which indigenous peoples and local communities, women, youth, and other stakeholder groups are being empowered by COMDEKS for action across diverse landscapes and seascapes. The landscape approach championed by the Satoyama Initiative has proven to be a powerful tool in fostering synergies. This is a vital contribution to the much-needed coordination at all levels to address the interconnected crises affecting our planet, including biodiversity loss, climate change, and land degradation. In addition to supporting the implementation of the objectives of the Convention on Biological Diversity, COMDEKS is also scoring points for the achievement of the action targets of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. We look forward to seeing COMDEKS activities and results reflected in the national reports due for submission by February 2026. But today, let us celebrate COMDEKS' important contribution to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and living in harmony with nature, and to demonstrating how community-led action can bring about effective results for people and for nature. Thank you.
Thank you to the CBD Secretariat for those remarks and for our ongoing partnerships. And thank you once again to all our speakers and partners for participating in this event today. This is an incredible partnership for local action through nature positive solutions. Thank you to our audience today for your time, for your attention, for your participation. I hope that you found today's event exciting and rewarding, and we look forward to working together with all of you on the implementation of COMDEKS Phase 4 and for our future events. Thank you very much, and goodbye to all.